Chapter 2. Ordained by Nature. Biology constructs the sexes. Biological explanations of differences between men and women, and Darwin's law of natural selection in particular, are given greater precedence in society, which then works to legitimate the segregation and justify inequalities between men and women, because any advancement of women into the man's world was considered unnatural. Evidence for social Darwinist beliefs about gender differences derive from three basic arenas. The first is the evolutionary imperative, that biological differences between men and women determine social arrangements, and not vice versa, focusing often on discussions of the drive for procreation. Men and women develop different reproductive strategies based on their biological makeup to ensure their genes are passed on. Women seek out one man who will protect and provide for a child, demanding monogamy, whereas men seek out as many women as possible to increase the odds of propagating. This theory also justifies social positions for men and women, and ultimately inequalities, such as rape. This theory, however, is based on limited evidence and what can be considered philosophical discussions. Much of the evidence is selective and even flawed, ignoring information that contradicts the theory. As well, social Darwinists failed to address alternative explanations about men as and women as behaviors, relying more on circular reasoning. The second arena of evidence used is the brain, believing men and women to have differences in development. Discussions about brain differences are biased simply because such studies focus on locating differences. This emphasis on difference persists today, focusing on three areas: right/left hemisphere difference, connective tissue between hemisphere difference, and different parts used for similar functions. As with past studies, these derive from a standpoint of male superiority, comparing women's brains with the male standard. Even more important, when identifiers of intelligence favor women, they are excused, explained socially, or changed. When studies change the focus or standard, the general theme tends toward the superiority of male brains. A third arena of evidence used to justify biological explanations concerns the study of hormones, emphasizing two areas: embryo development and puberty. Some of the research on hormones relies on limited findings to suggest differences, failing to fully address all of the potential problems and/or explanations. This oversimplifies the causal relationship between hormones and behavioral differences, not only for men and women, but also for gays and lesbians. In fact, research has consistently attempted to explain biologically that gays and lesbians are different in terms of gender displays compared with heterosexual men and women. Regardless, in the search for the gay gene, both biological and sociological explanations must be considered. Similarly, we overstate biological causation in discussions of hermaphrodites, ignoring social and cultural responses to them. The problem is that biological arguments are generally more accepted because they justify the status quo and ultimately male, heterosexual power. Generally, social and even political climate must be considered in the discussion, and subsequent biological research related to gender and sexuality.